everybody. Welcome. We're going to let people arrive, but welcome to Zoo Adventure with Sacramento Public Library. Welcome, everybody. So my name is Megan. I'm a librarian at Sacramento Public Library, and today we are so happy to present the Zoo Adventure for you. This is part of something that we do every year called Summer Reading Challenge. Now, the Summer Reading Challenge is a really cool program where you can sign up on our website, saclibrary.org. You register to become a reader, and then you log your reading and you log activities that you do all summer long. And then after that, you get to get points for it. When you get 500 points or read 5 books, you get a free book. And after reading 25 books or getting 2,500 points, you get a free medal. We also love to say that all reading is good reading. So it doesn't matter what you're reading, it's all wonderful. So as you see behind me, I've got all kinds of books about animals. You can read about some of the animals that you'll meet today from the zoo by picking up a book at the Sacramento Public Library. So I would love to introduce our guest from the zoo, Kate. You can take it away.
Hello, everybody. Can everyone hear me? Also, my fellow panelists can give me awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, my name is Kate, and behind the camera is Mike. Hi, everyone. You're seeing a lot of my face. Hello. And we are at the flamingo exhibit. So we're going to introduce some animals that you may choose to pick up a book and read about. So up first, we're having our Caribbean flamingos. Now, these flamingos, we have almost 50 here at the zoo. So quite a nice little flock. Now, you'll notice there are mounds in their water, and these are nesting mounds. You might see some laying down, some moving around, or patting down on their mounds. They're kind of getting those all nice and set during this time of year. Now, something else you might notice about our flamingos is that right now is definitely feeding time. They are getting their beaks into the water and their heads almost turned upside down, and they shift their heads really rapidly on the water. Now what they're doing is they're actually filtering out the water and ingesting all kinds of small crustaceans usually that help them actually get their vibrant pink color. Now here at the zoo, they do also get a special flamingo chow, extra delicious, but it has that special component that helps their feathers get nice and pink. It's called beta carotene. Now we do have some relative youngsters in the group, the youngest being about 2, and the oldest of our flamingo flock being about 57 years old, so they can live for quite some time. These birds are exceptionally long-lived, but some of the younger ones you might notice because they'll have a little bit of gray, particularly around their head or their neck, because that pink color grows in as they keep eating those beta carotene crustaceans. So that way their feathers kind of gain that pink color that way. Now we'll see some squabbling, some talking in and amongst the group. Since they are social, they communicate with each other, so that way they can get along as a big group, and they can also communicate with each other in case they need to move from predators or get to a different area to maybe watch young or anything like that. So communication for these birds is very important. Now, oftentimes we have people asking why flamingos might stand on one leg, and you know what? It kind of runs the gamut on theories. Sometimes they can lift that leg to keep one warm because it isn't feathered, and sometimes that helps their legs take a break. They can take a break by kind of picking up one foot like we might, or standing on one leg, and it can help with blood flow and circulation. Now Mike is zooming in on those legs and those feet. And they have really wide feet, and they'll pat it in the water even, and that helps them kind of churn up those crustaceans, the organisms in the water that they want to eat, so that way they're higher on the surface and they can filter it out. It also helps them be really stable when they're walking on kind of that muddy, murky surface, so that way they aren't slipping, they're able to get a grip, they're able to move in the water. There they are, showing off their excellent walking ability. One of our flamingos. You might notice bands on their legs. Those are identifiers for us. So that way we can tell the flamingos apart. Really important when every year they have a big annual exam and we gather up all 50 flamingos and they have a nice trip to the vet. So those identification bands are really important. Now, do we have any questions about our flamingo flock here at the zoo? Now, I see one that says, why don't flamingos fly away? That is an excellent question. There, if you'll notice, one wing is slightly kind of shorter than the other. It's called pinion. This is common practice in zoos. Basically, our flamingos can get kind of the glide that they would by flapping their wings, but they don't get the lift. They're missing that critical lift to get up into the air. Really important considering these flamingos are not native to California that they stay in this lake. Of course, they do have some California native friends join them, like the mallard ducks are wild, but they choose to join the flamingos, of course. There's kind of the silhouette of some of those mallards. Those aren't the zoos. They're from Sacramento and have chosen to join the flamingos as part of their little flock. Do we have any? Oh, I see some more. Hold on. Awesome. How many types of flamingos are there? They tend to be a pink variation. Now, some can be lighter than this. Some can be a little bit more vibrant. And some can be larger as well. There are several different species. I don't know all of them individually, but there are quite a few. So these are excellent questions. Now, baby flamingos are not pink when they're born. They're actually quite gray. And so that pink color comes from the food they eat, not necessarily that they were born with that color. And that pink color can even help them camouflage with each other. When they're all next to each other, even though it's a vibrant color, if you're all kind of huddled in a group, it's really hard to tell one flamingo from the other. So it can kind of protect them. Do flamingos migrate in the wild? They might move from place to place a little bit, but they're not known for long migrations spanning quite a distance, but they will definitely move and they can fly as a group, and that can help them get to, if they need to, a warmer climate, move where the water is, all of those important things. And these flamingos are a Caribbean species, so a little bit higher than South America, more central. And we did find out the answer to your question. There are 6 species of flamingos, 6 different types of flamingos. Such excellent questions about our flamingos. Oh, and they stand on one leg. There might be a couple different reasons. If it gets cold, they might tuck that leg fully up. Now, if you notice, they're kind of letting that leg not tuck up against their body, but kind of still giving it a rest. So it could also be for blood flow and circulation. It's kind of like when you stand on your legs for a long period of time, you might shift your weight between your feet. They're kind of doing that as well. So a couple different theories as to why they do that. Excellent questions. All right, guys, we have more animals in store, and we had such good questions about the flamingo, but you guys are going to come with me as we go to our classroom space, which hopefully you guys are all enjoying this view of the zoo from inside since it's so warm today. The flamingos don't mind, but the humans are excited to get into our classroom space. So we are going to move. You're taking a trip around the zoo to our classroom. And we'll be meeting animals from around the world there. So not just kind of that Caribbean species like the flamingo, but taking a little bit of a trip as well. We're having zookeepers. Always fun here at the zoo. There's Chris. She might be joining us too. Now, we are education specialists. So at the zoo, we take care of about 40 animal ambassadors. And those are some of the animals you're going to see. Not all 40 today, but we're going to be looking at different animals that kind of represent their species, so you can learn a little bit about them. Here we go. It's nice and green and sunny today. We hope you guys are all enjoying it. All right, here we go. Up the stairs first. Hope you guys are enjoying this walking tour. Okay, we'll let the lights adjust. Welcome inside. Now, this is our classroom space where you guys are going to be able to meet a few of those animal ambassadors. I'm actually going to set the computer down for a second. And we're going to get ready to meet our first one. Now, this is a really special one. Her name is Butternut. Now, Butternut is a squash, but in this case, it's also a prehensile-tailed porcupine. She's getting used to looking at the camera again. So we'll see if Butternut is ready to come on out. Butternut, target. Are you ready? Here she comes. Now, as a prehensile-tailed porcupine, she's covered with quills. Now we'll see if she's maybe interested in something really tasty like corn. Now those quills help protect her. So if you notice, they're kind of sticking up and at different angles, and those give her a certain amount of protection. So that way, if there's a big predator, she can just stick up those quills. There we go, take a nice little corn kernel. And she can protect herself. Now, they actually have barbs on the end. So she seems to have fallen asleep while holding that. Now, the barbs on the end will actually stick into an animal when they are protecting themselves. So if she were to stick up her quills in an animal, she might back into that kind of scary animal. Those quills will stick into it, and it could even get infected, but usually it hurts enough that the predator will let her go. Now, Butternut here doesn't have quills the same on her belly because she doesn't want to stick herself. So as she's enjoying this corn, you guys can look at her body. Look how she's covered in those quills. Now you might notice she's holding on to her food with her kind of hands, but she does have a really long tail, and it's called a prehensile tail. So she can kind of use it almost like another arm. Now Butternut here likes to hang out in kind of higher areas. She likes to be more arboreal or hang out in trees. And so that tail helps her hold on to branches, get grip, stay sturdy when she's climbing around. Really important. She still has those quills up. This is a little bit more noise. But you also notice when you look at her, she has a really large nose. That's usually one of the first things people notice about her. So she's using kind of, if something is large on an animal, maybe they have really big ears, or like Butternut, a big nose, that is actually providing them with their, like one of their most important senses. So here, her sense of smell is really important. Now, Butternut is nocturnal. And so she is typically a bit more active at night, but lots of animals are moving around during the day, including some predators. So many nocturnal animals are still pretty active or might kind of adjust or move around during the daytime. They just do most of their activity at night.
What does she smell like, Kate?
She smells like kind of musty onions is the best way to describe that, I think. It's not a pleasant smell, and a lot of animals that could potentially be prey don't want to smell appetizing, right? You want to smell kind of gross. So that way, if a predator smells you, they won't want to eat you. Plus, if they're getting close enough to smell her, she might be able to get them with those quills. Very important. And her quills do grow back like hairs. So even if she loses some, she'll be able to kind of regrow new ones. Are we having more questions?
We just had a comment that Butternut's name should be Nosy.
Nosy. She gets a little nosy. Sometimes she'll nose her way around and even like push her nose on branches that she's smelling. So definitely an important sense for her. Now, Butternut here is about 2 years old. She was born in April of 2019, and she's been with us about 1.5 years now. So we've been able to work with her, but she's still pretty young for a prehensile-tailed porcupine, but definitely an adult. She's still chewing and enjoying that corn. Now, while they may not find corn up high in the trees, she would be able to get different kinds of browse. So maybe she might chew on kind of leaves, eat some leaves, or even chew on branches and bark, and that can help grind down her teeth because she has rodent teeth that constantly grow, so she needs to work on them. But she might get different kinds of fruit up high in the trees, and I can see if she might be a bit more interested in said fruit, like a banana. once you can still, I don't know if you can hear her chewing, but she's a very loud chewer.
Kate, we have a few questions.
Sure, let's do it.
Someone wants to know, does she shoot out quills?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. She does not. Now, no animal can shoot out their quills. I always like to think that would take like jet propulsion or some level of hydraulics almost, but instead, she just kind of might ram her body into them and the quills either fall out or they break. Good job, Butternut. Here she comes.
So the question was, how long are her quills?
They vary in length. So you can see the ones by her face as she's coming here. Good job. The ones by her face are quite short and small versus the ones on her back are significantly longer. Now, she doesn't have as long of quills as maybe an African crested porcupine. They can have really long quills, but she has longer ones compared to her face on the back of her body. And so usually when there's a predator, she'll turn around and use that back.
I'd say maybe her longest quill is maybe 5 inches.
Yeah.
On the very, very back.
Yeah, that feels about right. Go up.
And then how long do they live?
These guys live to be
In their early 20s.
Awesome. In their early 20s. So like I said, she's still pretty young for a prehensile tailed porcupine. But a lot of animals other than maybe great apes, humans, they tend to grow up pretty fast. So she's definitely considered an adult.
Did we name all the animals at the zoo?
We don't name, kind of it depends. So some animals, they might have their keepers of their section might name them. So like we take care of Butternut, so we named her. Some animals have kind of contests where there might be some options and people weigh in. So it just depends on the animal.
And what type of porcupine was she again?
A prehensile tailed porcupine. Now, prehensile tailed meaning her tail kind of wraps around and holds on. Prehensile is that kind of dexterity. So some animals have prehensile tongues. She has a prehensile tail. So it wraps around a branch and holds on.
And why are her quills different colors?
That can help with camouflage. So kind of this tri-level it's really good for areas that have maybe lots of light and shadow. So the dark section of her quills might help blend in with the natural shadows. And then the light tips might also help when there are kind of light shining through trees.
And don't forget she has the yellow underneath. You can see that. No, I don't have food. Kate has food. But they're yellow underneath. So when they raise the quills up, that's a caution to those animals saying, caution, beware, I am prickly.
Awesome. Do we have more questions?
We do. Does she have any known siblings?
I don't know. She probably does,
They
but
generally have one at a time, but her parents have probably had other porcupines
yes.
for years.
But she came to us as a singleton. They aren't necessarily a group like the flamingos. So she doesn't want to hang out with a bunch of other porcupines because they're kind of competing for the same food. So they kind of go off on their own and find their own way.
And how do you train her?
We work with, it's called positive reinforcement. So she has things like this target pull. So if she touches the tip of her nose to it, if we ask target, there, see how she moved along and touched the tip of her nose to it. So we use that to kind of help guide her along certain things. We originally started with a lot of food as a target too. So it would help when we were trying to get her to learn to rise up. Butternut. Oh, we smell something. You can see how she pushed her nose down. She got really into it.
They want to know if she's had any babies. And no, she has not had any babies. One, because she's just kind of reached maturity level. Mm-hmm. The other is two, is she doesn't have a boyfriend or husband yet. So, but we would like to maybe get her a boyfriend or a husband at some point.
Ready? Good. All right. Good job.
We also had someone ask, is Butternut dangerous?
She's, in a way, these quills can be dangerous to other animals, right? Because if you get a quill stuck and it gets infected, that can be really bad for that animal. But she's not really dangerous to people, and with modern medicine, that's not as much of a concern, but she's not out hunting anything. She's eating plants. So she's much more of a concern for protecting herself rather than going out and kind of being aggressive. Butternut.
she's only dangerous in the way that she does have rodent teeth, so they do bite pretty hard.
Good job.
And then if you get a quill stuck in you, you can't get it out. That's where the dangerous part can be from.
Hi, Kennel.
And then we have, where would we get a husband from? We would get a husband from like another zoo.
Oh, you found that.
So there's another zoo that would have a male porcupine that's not related to her. We would talk with that zoo, and we would either have her go to that zoo or the boy would come here for breeding.
So a lot of the animals in the zoo are part of the species survival plan. So there's coordinators that look at their genetics, kind of their pedigree, and then they figure out who would be the best match. Butternut.
So does she understand English? Yes, she has been taught, I guess you could say, in English. She's always been around English-speaking people, so she knows simple commands just like your dog or cat would know. And does she like water? She likes water to drink. She likes ice cubes. She was gnawing on an ice cube earlier. I gave her an ice cube with a frozen piece of apple in it, and she thought that was pretty tasty. And they will also maybe go in water to cool off, or if they need to get across the river. But these guys being more arboreal up in the trees, they're going to use more of the tree kind of areas. So not one that spends a ton of time in the water.
And depending on what fruit they come across, they might get water from their food as well, or even the leaves if it's kind of rainforesty and they get a lot of moisture from that.
Does she make noise?
Yes, she does. It's not super loud, but she makes kind of a little, almost like a grunt or a groan, and then you hear her, she chews a lot. But since animals could potentially eat her, she doesn't make super loud calls that would attract attention to her. So they're a little bit more subdued than, say, like an owl or a lion, anything that makes those really loud calls. Hopefully she'll finish up her carrot and then we can move on to...
Butternut is the only porcupine we do have here at the Sacramento Zoo currently. In the past, we've had other types of porcupines. Many years ago, we used to have African crested porcupines at the zoo. Like I said, Butternut is currently our only porcupine. And the prehensile porcupine is not currently endangered, but their habitat is going to be endangered, living in the rainforest area of South America. And yes, she does have the big orange rodent teeth in the front there.
She is still really working on the
Where
carrot.
do we keep Butternut? Butternut is one of our education animals, and she lives kind of in the little building that's next to our amphitheater area. That's where all of our ambassador animals live. It's kind of, so she's not actually on exhibit, so it's kind of lucky that you guys get to see her in this program.
Yeah, she's extra special for virtual programs like this.
Yeah, so now that we have her out, she doesn't want to go back in.
She is almost done with her carrot. I bet many people love carrots. Butternut is definitely one of those. Kennel. Good girl.
Does she know how to make choices?
She, it's kind of different. We always think of things as thinking the same way we do. And animals think and process differently than humans. But she definitely might have preferences on things. She might have preferences to go to a certain spot. She might have preferences to eat a certain type of food over others. And so we certainly can look at her behavior and think, oh yeah, she's making that choice. But I'm not thinking like a porcupine. So it's a little different from how we think as humans compared to how she is thinking as well. But I think we are ready to move on to one of our next animals. I'm actually going to move her branching because this next animal is not known for its climbing ability. Well, I guess it kind of is in a weird way, but much more on the ground. And this is Ronnie. Ronnie is an American alligator. Now, he is also young. He is over a year, almost a year and a half now. And one of the ways that these guys grow is actually really cool. So when he's basically until he's 6 years old, he'll grow almost a foot a year. And so he, being almost 2 years old, actually in August, he's almost 2 feet long. So it's a nice way for us to kind of look and guess an alligator's age that way. Once he's 6 feet though, his growth rate slows down and he might even grow only an inch a year. But alligators can live quite some time, and some of the bigger alligators can get even 15 feet long. So Ronnie definitely still has some growing to do. But as an American alligator, these guys will be found, we especially think of around Florida and the Everglades, and they're really important for the habitat there in those kind of swampy wetlands because they're known to make kind of wallows in the mud that help collect water and help other species in there. Now, if we're looking at his head, you can see he has lots of adaptations for life in the water. You might notice his eyes are on the top of his head as opposed to Butternut's, which were almost on the side. This kind of eyes on the top help him sit in the water and just kind of poke his eyes and maybe his nostrils out into the air so he can look around and breathe for longer while sitting pretty still in the water. Now, he is an ambush predator, so being still is important when he's ready to kind of get his food. He might sit and wait. He might even open his mouth and let his mouth stay open for longer. And then when that prey is close enough, he'll lunge forward and snap his jaws shut. Now, he has a lot of teeth in his mouth, and they replace. So once he breaks a tooth, and they can do that somewhat easily, he'll grow a new one. And an alligator can go through almost 3,000 teeth in their lifetime. So quite a few. Now, I know we spent a lot of time on Butternut, so we'll see if we have any questions on Ronnie.
Does he like to eat fish?
Yes, he does. I think his favorite right now is smelt. He's really into smelt right now, but he also gets mice here at the zoo.
And why does he have that pattern on his body?
Ooh, excellent question. So the young alligators tend to have this pattern that helps them blend in with the kind of reedy grasses that are along the water bank. And that can help them camouflage a bit better because one of the biggest predators of young alligators are adult alligators. And so camouflaging in can help keep them safe. And then they might stay pretty close to mom, which is a little unusual for reptiles.
What are we going to do with him when he gets about 6 feet?
Before he gets to 6 feet, he'll go back to Florida at a facility there that they gave him to us. And so he will go back there where they have more space for him. But we do have adult alligators here at the zoo as well. And they're about 7, 8 feet now almost. And so we do have a set of adults. He just isn't going to go out to live with them because by then they'll have grown even more. And the size difference could not be great for Ronnie.
Are his teeth sharp?
Yes, they can be. They aren't like razor sharp, but he definitely has a lot of jaw strength. He has more muscles to close his mouth than he does to open them. So he has a lot of pressure along with his teeth.
Is he strong?
Yes, you can see him moving around. And even though he's small, he definitely has very, very strong muscles. They help him swim in the water, kind of walk on land, and then help him get his food. So he's definitely strong.
Does he make noise?
Yes, so he does make noise, particularly at Mike, when Mike has food around, and he might make a little like a call to almost mom. So he does make little noises, and then adult alligators have big, deep bellows.
Why are his eyes looking to the side instead of the front?
So the way they're kind of angled, it can help him kind of just look around. There is kind of a dead space right in the front of his face, but for him, he just kind of wants to see what's going on, right? He needs to have a good peripheral view when he's in the water. So that's really important for him.
We said he ate fish, but is there anything else he might eat?
At the zoo, he definitely gets mice. In the wild, it would be anything that's meat that they could probably manage to get into their mouth, pull into the water, and kind of wiggle into smaller enough pieces. Now, he does get a gator chow, so a compressed kind of nutrients like you would dog or cat kibble. And our big gators get the big form of that, which are fairly large biscuits of a similar nutrient as well.
How often does he eat?
Ronnie eats 3 times a week. Yep, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Right. He looks muscular.
Yes, he is. Can you tell?
And does he live with other alligators?
He does not. Now, some alligators definitely can coexist with other alligators. But right now, he would be kind of testing the waters, right? Trying to see, am I dominant? All of those things. And he's kind of learned to coexist with us as humans. And so he just kind of, this is his special role to represent those other alligators.
How do alligators communicate with each other?
They are able to kind of probably communicate on a level that we may not even hear in the water. And then the bellows that they do that are really loud, that's definitely a threatening sound. But I'm going to go ahead and let Ronnie go because I know we have a couple more animals and I don't want to go too far over on our time.
While Kate's getting that next one, I can see some of the other ones. He can kind of see underwater. He has like a third eyelid that he will kind of put up to protect the eye, and it's somewhat see-through that he can see with that. So it's not the best vision, but he can kind of see stuff. Will he bite you because you are not wearing gloves? No, we know how to handle him, and you saw that he was not trying to get us. He's used to being handled and touched. It's not a big deal. And we know the areas where we can and cannot touch. And are you scared of touching an alligator? What if it bit you? Well, I'm not as scared of him. I do have respect for him and that he can bite. So I'm very careful when working with him. But we definitely don't go in and touch our big alligators. That would definitely be a dangerous thing. But I think Kate is ready with our next animal guest.
Welcome to the oldest animal in the zoo. This is Herkimer, and Herkimer is a California desert tortoise. Now, he is about 94 years old, and he can definitely live for some time longer, maybe even to be 120. Now, these guys are the state land reptile of California. So a very important Californian species, but we wouldn't necessarily find them usually up this far north, rather more south where it is deserty, because that's where he's used to walking around. He would blend in and camouflage, and he would be able to dig in the dirt and the sand to create really big burrows. So he has nice long nails that are really helpful for digging, and he might dig a burrow as long as 30 feet long, and he will let other animals into that burrow. Now that burrow is important for reptiles because they hit a nice sweet spot of temperature. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. Really important in the desert when it gets really hot in the daytime and really cold at night. But by digging in the ground, kind of the temperature levels off a bit. And he, with this really big shell, lets in all different kinds of animals, something from foxes to rattlesnakes and scorpions. He doesn't mind because he has all of this protection. He has this big shell. He has these really thick scales on the front of his leg. And so if he were to tuck in his head, there's really no predator that can get him once he's this big. So really, the only danger to, I see he has food on his face as well. The only danger to these guys are when they're first kind of hatching out of the eggs and they're growing up, because predators might even, like especially birds, will pick them up and drop them so their shells break. So once they get big enough and that shell is nice, fully formed, everything, and strong, he doesn't really have to worry about too many predators. He just has to worry about other male tortoises threatening his space, his food, his territory, all of that important stuff. But because they make homes for other animals by digging those burrows, these guys are considered a keystone species. So really important for that habitat. There he is, moving super fast, right? So he might be investigating. He can see in color because he eats plants, and seeing in color is really important when you're trying to pick out which plants you want to find or pick out the plants in the desert. Now, I imagine we have some questions about Herkimer.
Yes, we got a comment of, hi, Mayor, Reptile of California. The reptile species for California. Does he have a name?
Yes, his name is Herkimer. And there is original tank design that was called the Herkimer, so really strong like a tank. But also there's a diamond. Again, diamond's very strong. That's called a Herkimer diamond.
And then why are his arms and claws backwards?
So this can help them when they're digging, when they're pushing, but also so this kind of shape, when he does get scared by something or he wants to camouflage, he'll pull in his head and these arms come together. And what happens is he's basically shutting the door. So the shape of these definitely help him close the door so he's protected and no animal can get to his head. So really important for him to have those kind of shield-shaped arms.
Can you make him tuck his head in?
He is pretty brave. Really nothing phases him. So he won't do it for the most part. Plus, I wouldn't want to scare him. I want him to be very comfortable with where he is and being handled or touched by us. So we're happy that he's out active and even kind of walks around.
Why do tortoises move so slow?
Well, I've never seen a plant run away. So he doesn't have to go chasing down those plants. He also has all of that protection built in, and this protection is heavy. It's a layer of bone and then keratin on top of it. So it's kind of like walking around on all fours with a backpack full of books. You would move pretty slow too. So the heaviness of the shell, even though it makes him slow, it doesn't hurt his chances. He's kind of slow and steady for sure, because the plant will be there when he gets there. So he'll get his food.
Can he swim?
No. So typically we think of tortoises as being on land, but a big distinction is they eat only plants. However, that said, he cannot swim. So the shape of his legs, especially his back legs, they kind of almost look like elephant feet. So they're meant for walking on land, moving slowly that way, and kind of giving him that push on terrestrial environments.
Does he keep growing bigger?
Yes, he will grow his entire life, but kind of like the alligator, once he's mature, it slows down. But all of these little lines on his shell, those are all kind of shed marks, like he keeps growing when he sheds. So those are all, it's almost like the growth lines of a tree, but it's not consistent like a tree. So you can't count them, which is a little disappointing, but it does show that he grows his whole life as his scales kind of shed and continue to grow and kind of be formed from with like the center part out.
And how long does he live?
He can live, over 100, maybe to even 120. So a long time, but not the longest of tortoises.
What happens if his shell comes off? Can he, I'm assuming, grown back?
Well,
or go faster.
Oh, he cannot leave his shell at any point. So the cartoons that always have tortoises like hopping out of the shell, that can't happen. It's fused to his spine. So right along the center, his backbone is underneath here, and it's connected to the bone that makes up his shell. So he is connected to it for his whole life. That's why it grows with him too. That's why we can look and see those kind of growth marks.
Does he make any noise?
Not really. Maybe a little bit when he's eating, but not a ton.
Does he like humans?
He is very okay with us. I don't know if he would like or dislike us, but he seems to tolerate our presence. But I think it's time for our last animal before we get too late, so you guys can say goodbye to Herkimer as he goes in for a little snooze. And our final animal, we're kind of like coming back to our nocturnal theme, is in here, and his name is Charlie. Now, Charlie is a local animal. So we've seen some from far away, we've seen some from down south in California, but Charlie is one you might hear even in your backyards here in Sacramento and across much of the United States. So we'll see if Charlie is ready. Hi, buddy. Ready? Up. Girls. Good job. There you go. Oh, there he is, hooting away. There he is. Here's Charlie. Now, Charlie is a great horned owl, and he is about 7 years old now, and he's been with us for 6 of those 7 years. Now, you heard his hoot, and he might do it again because he sees Mike, and Mike's one of his favorite people to hoot at. Now, so that is kind of that quintessential owl hoot. Oh, thank you. Now, other owls that we have in the area, they don't really make that noise. They might make little twitters. They might almost sound like a tiny horse whinnying, or even almost like a scream with a barn owl. But Charlie here is the one when you're out kind of at dusk, as it slowly turns into night, you hear that kind of hoo-hoo. That's the great horned owl. Now, they're fairly large and fairly strong, and you can see I have a nice thick glove on to protect myself from these big talons. So he's hunting with those feet, and they're covered in feathers to help make him really quiet. And then he has kind of that really fun modeling to his feathers. They almost look like tree bark to help him camouflage at night. Now, he's called a great horned owl because of these little feathers, and they are just that. They're not ears. They're called plumelcorns, and he'll kind of like move them up or move them flat, it can help him blend in, or it almost is like our way of understanding how Charlie might be feeling in a certain moment. So if he's really excited, he might have them kind of neutral, or if he's a little concerned about something, there might be straight up extra camouflage. Now, his wingspan, I'm not very good at guessing that. Mike, do you have any idea what his wingspan would be? 4 to 5 feet? Somewhere in there? I'm not very good at guesstimating. We'll go with 4. Now, Charlie's not the biggest, and female great horned owls do get bigger than him, so they would have a bigger wingspan as well.
Why are his eyes yellow?
Ooh, so great horned owls just tend to have yellow eyes, but they are really large, and that kind of color is really big part of their eye because their eyes are exceptionally important to how they hunt. So he wants to be able to see a small mouse, even a skunk, really far away in the dead of night. So he has those really large eyes to help him do that.
Can you make him turn his head 360?
Ooh, that was a very specific degree question, which I can answer. No, I cannot, because he cannot turn that much. He can turn his head 270 degrees. So if you kind of saw, he can go all the way to back here, and then he has to like start over. So it looks like he can turn 360, but if you notice, he stops right there, and then he'll start coming from the other direction.
Is he spoiled?
Yes. We like to think that we spoil all the animals at the zoo, but Charlie does have some certain favorite things that we can do. He likes to hide in like fire hose kind of ribbons. He also has a stuffy that he likes to hang out with. We named her Gwen. So he has a snowy owl stuffed animal that he likes to snuggle up to that we make sure he has. So there are certain things that we can give these guys that are fun enrichments for them. He also likes cardboard boxes where he can kind of walk in and be nest. So anything can be enrichment for these guys.
Is he loud, or owls, are they loud?
He can be. I mean, you kind of heard him. He definitely made more of a vocal sound. And then he does talk to the native owls at night as well. Sometimes we sleep over at the zoo, depending on the programming, and we hear Charlie talking.
And then someone asks, can he fly?
So yes, he can fly. That's why he has all of this fun equipment on him. So he has kind of, it's almost like a little, they're called anklets, but they're like a little leather collar for just their ankles, because their ankles are much, much, much stronger than their necks compared to like a dog or a cat. And so then he has just a little strap of leather, and then it's all connected to a leash. So he can fly, and in his house, he flies all the time.
If it's windy, does the wind help him fly?
I guess it depends which direction the wind is going, because if he's going against the wind, it's going to hurt how fast he goes or his kind of momentum. But if he's going with the wind, then yeah, sure, it could help him fly. But he's not well known for speed, but he's a really silent flyer. So he cares more about making less noise, so that way his potential prey doesn't hear it.
Is he smart?
They are not the wisest of birds because their eyes take up so much space in their skull. So crows and ravens are among the most intelligent birds. Parrots are really intelligent. Owls we don't typically put up there with the other birds.
So not exactly true, the myth. Owl. He's as smart as he needs to be to survive in the wild.
Yes, the eyesight was more important. Do we have other questions?
No, it looks like that's all the questions.
All right, guys. I know we ran a little more time.
We have one more. Do his eyes dilate like a cat's when he hunts?
Yes, they do like dilate and constrict. He's in consistent lighting right now, so you may not see it as much. But at nighttime, they definitely do to help bring in more light to see better at night. Oh, there they go. So there's plenty of light, and then less light means they can dilate out.
And how long can he fly at a time?
These guys aren't typically known for super long flights. They're going to be moving to tree to get to their prey, and then they may even have to take time and eat it. So they're not doing long distance flights.
Yeah, no migration.
No migration.
What does he eat?
Here at the zoo, he gets mice, a favorite. But in the wild, they can eat anything from things like small mice, voles, birds, to even skunks. So they can get something fairly large, and he doesn't really have the same sense of smell. So he doesn't mind the stinky skunks. So he's a pretty big predator of skunks, actually. Not him in particular.
They said he should be named Harry Potter.
Some owls definitely have Harry Potter themed names. I worked with one whose name was Mad Eye. But we like Charlie. He's a very kind of picturesque owl, but he is an example of, you know, what happens when people think they could take home a baby owl. And so Charlie was a little bit too used to humans. They tried to rehab him back to kind of owl school, basically, try to see if he could go back out into the wild. And unfortunately, he kind of didn't make the cut. He actually went out to be released, and he turned and walked back to the trainer. So he's kind of the example of why you don't want to do that, and why these guys are excellent wild birds and very important at keeping pest populations down, like mice and rats. All right, guys, do we have any more questions about Charlie? If not, I think it's ready to pass back over to talons one more time. Those very strong, long talons, super critical for helping him hunt. All right. I think we're getting ready to sign off, so we'll turn it back over to Megan so she can talk to you all one more time.
Everybody, thank you so much for coming today. We are so happy to have hosted the zoo. I was very impressed with all of those animals that we met. Some of you might have more questions. Well, I really encourage you all to go visit the zoo this summer. Part of summer reading that we host at the Sacramento Public Library every year is that we encourage you to go out and explore your community. And one of the best ways you can do that is go out and visit some of the fun organizations that we have in Sacramento. And so please visit the Sacramento Zoo. You can learn a lot. I also encourage you to read some books about the animals that you're interested in, or about the animals that we met. And I want to give you a hint on how to sign up for summer reading. So you can go to saclibrary.org and you can sign up for summer reading. You can keep track of all of your reading and all the activities that you do this summer. And you can win a free book for reading 5 books, and you can get a medal for reading 25 books. But more than that, it's really fun. You can see how much you can read. Give yourself a challenge. And we will love to see you at Sacramento Public Library. I hope you'll come and visit us really soon. Thank you. Bye.